Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am making an African beef stew, okay? So some of the main ingredients that you'll need, now I soup mine up with other ingredients, but the main things you'll need is onions, garlic, tomato paste, ginger, and the hot pepper to actually start your process. But for me, I do add bell peppers, and scallions to it, but that's not necessary. That's just something that I added to it. So as you can see here, I rinsed off a lot of Roma tomatoes. You can use whatever tomatoes you like, but I used the Roma tomatoes and bell pepper. What I'm doing here is I'm slicing the vegetables that will go into my blender because all of this stuff will need to be blended together. So I put about 6 or 7 Roma tomatoes, and as you can see, I just split them down the middle and quartered them and just threw them right over in the blender, which you can't see right now, but you'll be able to see it. And I did actually, I think I started with like 5 tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, and these were actually plump and juicy Roma tomatoes. That you'll see that I put in there, but I ended up adding like 2 more. So I may have a total of about 6 or 7 Roma tomatoes in the blender. And here's an onion that I'm throwing in, and I put about in African stew, you really can make it your own. My family loves garlic, so I used about 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 so garlic cloves, but you don't have to use that much. You really can put what you want it to be. And here you'll see me just, taking the garlic apart. I really wanted to make this easy. Although there are steps that are involved in making this stew, I really try to make it as easy as possible for people to follow. So yeah, that's about 6, 7 actually garlic cloves, and some of them were pretty large. That's because we really love garlic. And as you can see here, I put everything down in the blender. That is the bell pepper. Now, African stew typically, and this starts jollof rice. This starts a lot of African dishes, but usually you'll see people use Scotch bonnet or habanero peppers. Those peppers are way too hot for me and my palate, and my family's palate. So I try to get a milder pepper, and so I use that pepper, and I actually got it from a Latino store, and that pepper was hot, but it wasn't too hot. It wasn't overpowering, and it was just perfect for our stew. As you can see here, I took some ginger, and I only added about 2 small pieces of ginger to the mix. And this is it when it's blended. You see the consistency when it's poured. And you're just going to put it to the side because you've got to start your base. And your base is going to be an oil, some onions, and some tomato paste. That's how you're going to start the base for your stew. And here I just cut up those onions. I used about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. You can use canola oil. You want an oil that's going to last long. I'm just showing you here the consistency. I kind of sped this up too so you guys can see, I try to do it at a fast pace. So once the oil gets heated, you're going to add your whole, this is an entire medium onion. If I had, and granted, the bag of onions I purchased were not really big, so it was a medium onion, but I prefer a really large white onion, okay, when you're starting. And then here's the tomato paste. I used half of that small can of tomato paste, which came to about 2.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. And what you're going to do is you're just going to saute it with those onions. You want to keep your heat on medium because if you don't watch it, this can easily burn. So that's something I want you guys to know. It can burn if you don't pay attention. I would not walk away, pick up your phone, get distracted doing other things because the heat can easily, go there. I'm using my Dutch pot because I just love how it evenly cooks, and it's just perfect for so many dishes. I would use a Dutch pot or cast iron. So as you can see here, this is me just stirring it up, and I realize, okay, it's time to go ahead and pour my blended mixture over into that tomato paste. That's the start of your base for your stew. And typically, you guys, with most African dishes, you can start them this way. You can start them this way because this is how you're going to start making your jollof rice. There are many different versions out there, and so you just do it to your taste. Okay, so from there, you'll notice now you got to really pay attention to seasoning your food. So the seasonings I used are the complete seasoning. I also use Jamaican curry. You want to use Jamaican curry because that flavor is what you want in your base of your stew. And you're going to use whatever chicken seasoning you have. I actually had picked up that Knorr seasoning, but I've seen people use Maggie Pollo chicken seasoning. I've used plenty different of those chicken bases, so they're good. And then make sure you taste it. So I tasted it was good to go at that point. So now in a separate pan, what I'm doing is this is what I'm going to saute my beef stew with. You guys, there are so many different variations. Just make it your own. Make it your own. What I love about African cooking is the flavor profiles and how rich and that depth of flavor that comes into their dishes, into African cooking. Oh my, it's so good. So I hope you guys try this dish. So here I'm just cooking that steak that I cut up into cubes. I'm just cooking it through. I want it to be done before I put it in the stew. And then once it goes down into that stew, it's going to actually become where it just melts in your mouth. It's going to become tenderized once it cooks down in that stew. So here I actually edited this video, but I only stirred it in different intervals. I kind of just left it alone, came back ever so often and stirred. You don't want to do too much manipulating because you want it to actually cook. And so here I just take the time and drain off the excess juice and oil that I started my steak in. Okay, you want to make sure you get as much as possible and put it over into your stew. And here I just, I took my pan off because I wanted to clean my pan because I'm going to add the cabbages to my cast iron. But as you can see here, I'm just, stirring it in, making sure that everything is mixed well. And then from there, I added some chicken stock to this, or chicken broth to my actual stew. I didn't need a whole lot because I'm not making jollof rice. I'm making a stew. So I didn't need a whole lot of chicken broth or chicken stock, whatever you use. And from there, I tasted it and I realized at that point, I wanted to add a little bit more of the Jamaican curry. I also added a little bit of the complete seasoning and a little bit of the just a little bit of the chicken seasoning in there, as you can see there. And I just mix it in and I tasted it yet again to just make sure the flavor is where I wanted it to be. And once it was good, I just put the lid on it and just to let it stew down. So in my cast iron skillet, I just started with some bacon fat that I had left over, or bacon drippings. I put down the bacon drippings, let it get hot. I washed my cabbages really well. And so I started it with those scallions that I had left over, and the cabbage greens, I just threw them right over into my cast iron skillet. And I seasoned it simply with salt and pepper. And I think I did a little bit of that complete seasoning into the cabbage. Not a whole lot, because it's just you want that sweetness from the cabbage to hit with that savory stew. Oh, it's so good. And then I just took my leftover chicken broth that I had and put it over in that cabbage and put the lid on it so it can stew down. Here, I'm just showing you the consistency of the stew. Honey, when I tell you we had already ate out of this pot, but I wanted to show you how thick and rich it became, that it pairs so well with that rice and those cabbages. Ah, it's so good. And there you have it. It's so easy to do. And you get such a depth of flavor that it's like, wow, how long did it take you to cook this? So I just made it easy for you. So if you like what you're seeing, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. There are more videos coming, and I hope you have a great, great day.